All right, we are live. Let's find out if that's true or not. We should be live. I'm going to do some quick social media posting updates, and then we're going to get to work here this morning, do some artwork. Let's see, live, and I don't see it coming through yet. Where is the live feed? Am I up? There I am. Okay, so I should be here. And okay, so I should be here. Yay, I'm here. Okay, cool. So I'm gonna drop that volume down there so it doesn't get in the way. I'm gonna grab that link here real quick for the social media posts, and then we'll get artwork done. Let me distract you with my origin story while I go through that process. So, hey, my name is Phil Kearney. I create role-playing games, I illustrate them, I publish online, and I'm creating content for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition using the new 2024 rules. Specifically, we're creating an adventure for Eberron. You can see the book cover here called Crystals of Mavar. For 7th, 8th level characters, we're fighting necromancers, demons, and undead in the Carnwood of Karrnath on the continent of Corvair. And check. Looks like I got all my posts taken care of. So let me flip my screen here, and then if you think artwork today is cool, or the design that I do in the evenings, like, subscribe, hit the bell icon for notifications of when we're live in the future. Here's a bunch of books I've already created on the DMsGuild. They all have free preview. If you think they're cool, check them out. Thanks. So let's just get to work. So we're gonna drop this down to here. And then we're going to grab this here. We made this book cover on episode 40. You can drive to the Wayback Machine. But here we are now. So, where's my pen? Here it is. All right, so last night yesterday on stream, we had gotten to a place that looks roughly like this. Here. This is as far as we got on screen yesterday. And then I swore that I would go off screen and add in some more volume to this to fill out the fields, and I have, and then I got carried away and I did some foreground shrubbery, so I'm going to drop the shrubbery away. Actually, before I drop the shrubbery away, I'm going to leave it there as a reference point, and then when I come back here, grab this real quick. I want to just do just a little bit of spot. We're gonna go here, and here, and then there's just a couple points where I wanted to see some more. And here. 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 Cool. Now we can take our eraser. Push that into the terrain. All right, and then I'm going to. So we were talking about putting tulips in. I think I want to put tulips into this space here. So I want to rework these bushes. So I'm going to step away from the color that we've been using, and we're going to drop into here. I'm going to redo the shrubbery here, just so you guys can see what that looks like. So I'm going to grab this. The foliage texture brush that we use. This is in the brush set that's on my Patreon. You can link down. It's linked down below. If you follow me on Patreon, you can have access. You can download these at no cost. If you want to support me on Patreon with $1 a month, God bless you, and thank you for the support. But this is a promise I made to make these tools available when I hit 500 subscribers. We are now at 585 subscribers, so I've finally followed through on that promise. Thanks for sticking around, guys. And you can see with the mouse that it spins and changes size. That's to randomize the pattern so that you can't really track so it stays random. So I'm going to use the same brush as I'm adding to. I'm going to use the same brush to erase. Just get rid of some of these tall hairs that are up there. And I want to use a light stipple touch so that there's space in between to help create the illusion of branches and shit. So we're gonna add in the mass first, and then we'll probably scratch in some branches. So my main concern with the piece right now is I think this simulating fields, tall grass, corn, I think that's working out really well. I'm happy with the texture. When you zoom in and take a look at it, it looks pretty good. When you zoom out, it has that field sort of look, but there's this texture effect that's going on around at this point here that I want to add in. We were talking about tulips, so I want to add in tulips here as a buffer between the overall field and the front shrubbery that we're working on right now. Right, so adding in the shrubbery allows us to define our margins, right? So we know that roughly inside this space here is where I want to develop our tulips, which isn't a very large area, so I don't need to do a lot of them. I am slightly concerned about the striping, like how striated this piece looks. Here's our actual frame that we have along with the text here. So this is how it sits on the piece. I'm not 100% on how the margin that we're doing a mask layer over. I'm not 100% sure I'm happy with how that looks right now, but this is how it looks right now. So I'm going to erase like that. But you know, it's a work in progress. We're going. In Muse we trust. I know that she's gonna lead us to where it's supposed to be, and it's gonna be fine. So let's get rid of those. But I am concerned about how flat and linear the composition is becoming. That was a risk that we had. So while we're in this mess right now, the next step for us is going to be to create shrubbery. So I'm laying down that line, and then we're going to overlay that, and then we're going to grab our shrubbery brush. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use this brush to add some volume. Again, all these brushes are in the Patreon ASB file that I published probably 2 weeks ago. So I'm just going down like this to create some basic fluffage, and then we're going to fan it out. It's a good way to add mass without having to worry about the specific branches yet. Then we're going to use the same brush to erase. Increase the size towards the bottom. Just create some nice little scruffage right away for us. Let's get rid of the text. So to break up that linearity, I can create these little breaks with the shrubbery. I can also actually take all that, cut, paste. push this down a little bit. What I really want to make sure is that I don't align these crests in the hedge. I don't want them to line up too much with the structures in the background. That's called I don't know. I don't think that has a technical term. I was about to say the technical term is tangents, but tangents is when, like, if I had an airplane or like a bird, and the bird happened to perfectly align with the curve of the mountain, that would be a tangent, where the two lines of separate objects intersect as a single shape. Restart. Good. Restart. 20-minute timer. I'm gonna sip of coffee here. But I don't know what it is. It's just I don't know, syncopated maybe. Maybe that's the right word to use. Anyway, the most important thing for me is to be sure to. What is this? Be the first on the leaderboard to show support. Try saying a live chat or super chat. Oh, it's just saying firsts. Got it. That's what that is. What are you all about? Huh. I'm learning tools. The more you know, you know? Alright, so, again, taking shrubbery here. Let's bring this down here. That's starting to look pretty good. Volume in here just to fill it in. We're going to come back through with an eraser here in a moment, so let's see. Let's first do that. Few more steps than what Bob does when he's creating his paintings, because he has more flexibility and dexterity with his physical meat space brushes than we have with our static Photoshop brushes. We can use filters and tools to help randomize the tools a little bit, but they'll never be as truly random and expressive as him being able to just manipulate the brush directly himself. So I'll go trees. But it's the same basic techniques. So we have those layered in there. Now we're going to be able to grab these brushes here and layer them over. Larger, we can just fill in the mass, like Bob would say. Just fill in the mass, like Bob would say. Just plump it up, make it fluffy, and we'll go back through with highlights inside that space to help differentiate one branch from another as it cascades down the structure. That looks pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that. One, two, and then we'll do the same over here, smaller brush size. see the little peppering that happens inside here, these little highlights. So the mass that we had made as a central trunk, you can still see it through the stipple haze, as it were. And I'm just going to merge this down. Merge that layer down as well. Merge, and I'm still getting used to the format locations. Hold on, that didn't happen right. Front. Good. There we go. Merge down here. There we go. I'm taking this other texture brush and I'm picking at the edges around the extremities so that the pattern remains. The pattern of the brush is both good and bad. It's good because the pattern recognition makes it read like this is a coherent plant with anatomy that's consistent, because plants are consistent in their structure. But the bad is that it's such a distinguishable pattern that it kind of breaks its own. It breaks its own illusion if I leave it be. So what I want to do is come in and erase away some of the patterning, keep most of it in place, so that you can still recognize the pattern, but disrupt it so it doesn't look automated. If that makes sense. So it doesn't look like a brush. The last thing, an artifact is a term used when the painting, you can tell, like you can see the pixel brush, or you can see like the brush marks or the pixelation of something through the illusion of the illustration. The illustration isn't successfully fooling the eye because the eye is picking up on the brush pattern more than it's picking up the composition of the piece that the brush strokes are creating, which means that the painting isn't interesting enough to hold your attention for your eye to forgive and ignore the brush patterns. It's looking, it's noticing, it's picking up pattern recognition from how the brush works. So you haven't done a convincing enough job of making foliage for your eye to forgive and ignore that it's a replicating brush pattern. See, that's randomized enough now that the pattern isn't so readily available, and it looks like a decent little conifer. So, cheers to that. And we're going through and doing the same thing with this. Again, we have all these like replicating little bits here. I want to break those apart. So this is a really good point. People on the topic of skill or paint brushes. What is it like? Custom brushes versus being able to create the work yourself. These brushes that I'm using, you can see that I'm using them in combination with each other, and I'm using them to create specific visual effects that the brushes help shortcut. Like doing all these individual little jags as individual needles on a plant, that would be just suicidal for me. I would kill myself if I had to do this many nettles. But the brushes that we're using are simulating and faking the appearance of nettles, just like Bob Ross's techniques when he's doing happy trees in a conifer forest. he's not worrying about individual leaves or branches unless he's like doing a little line to indicate like a branch or twig or roots or something. But he's not going in and like drawing each individual branch on a tree. He's just using a technique with his brush to simulate the effect and create an illusion that the eye will accept as this is a tree. It looks right, the texture's good, let's move along. That's how the eye works. It wants to shorthand everything, create shortcuts, and it's lazy. I talked about that a lot. But he doesn't have to worry about replicating patterns because there's so much randomness that's just built into how he holds, turns, spins, and angles the brush. That he doesn't have to think about it. It's just reflexive for him to do it. And B, there's so much variance in the 1,000 hairs, horse hairs that are in a brush that it's never going to replicate the pattern, the stippling, the pressure. It can replicate. He can be consistent in his form and his execution, but the random nature of how the brushes are going to twist, turn, squinch, and flex under the pressure of the stipple, it's always going to look different. So ours is always going to look the same. So we have to go through and individually build that replicating pattern with a fairly predictable brush and then randomize the results with the eraser. So the eraser is a different type. In this instance, the eraser is a different brush than I'm removing ink with a different brush than I'm adding it. They're both technically brushes, so I'm having vocabulary issues. Forget that. So yeah, we create randomness by taking two different types of brushes, adding and then switching brushes, erasing, switching brushes, adding, switching brushes, erasing. So adding the brush that's adding is creating the pattern, and the other type of brush that we're erasing with is destroying the first pattern while still helping reinforce the overall composition of it. Like it looks like a tree. But it requires more guidance and intention than how Bob would do it. Because again, Bob, all he has to do is just hit it with the brush and you're good to go. It's never going to be the same. For us to be able to, again, destroy that replicating pattern, we have to be a little more methodical and self-aware of where we're dropping pixel pigment onto the page. So here's this and this, and I can actually here. Yeah, that feels about right. I don't want them being even because that's boring. I don't want this one being too tall because it slides. Actually, that being higher up like that actually does do pretty good. There's always the issue of being too high starts to create an unnatural frame around the picture. So a lot of times I'll have the outer one be lower so that it doesn't close off the piece. It opens up at the corner here. It opens it back up again. I don't like that tool. There we go. Opens up again, but I think honestly in this instance I like it framing the piece a little bit more. So I think I want to raise that up. But now I feel an imbalance in the piece. So hey, what's going on, Fernando? It's good to see you. Cheers. Let me fix my screen. There we go. Right. So this composition as it sits, it's feeling. This is a risk I was concerned about, and it's manifesting that this is a really this is the center of the piece, and it's not very exciting. So I like how the field has turned out. I like the replicating pattern, the stalks. That all looks really good. It's this zone in here. This is the center of the piece, like dead center, and it's got nothing going on. So it's too much pattern replication. The field is too dull. So like I was saying, I want to drop tulips in here So right now we're building the shrubbery to create the frame where the tulips are going to drop in. And I haven't figured out how to build the tulips yet, but I'm probably going to, excuse me, I have to pick my eye. We're probably going to build a custom brush here for the tulip tips. I think I can get away with just a simple stalk and then the tulip bud at the top. So we're going to craft a new brush for the tulip bud, and we're just going to use just basically line art and simplicity for the stalks. That should be easy. But by dropping color into here, that's like a sharper, like a red or a purple or something like that, it's going to pop really good between here and here. So I want to create the shape of the lower edge of that tulip space with the shrubbery that we're doing, so that we have properly so that we've again properly framed the space where the tulips are going to sit, so we know how to develop them. So I'm going to just add some fluff here. So we'll get the shrubbery done for sure today. See, I'm just taking the same. I'm taking the brush that I erased with, and I'm using it to add pixels here. And I'm specifically fanning out. You can see how I'm creating this replicate. I'm basically just doing a fan effect like that. And then I just overlap them. Again, this is back on topic. Using like acquiring a brush set doesn't necessarily mean that you know how to use the brush set. Like all these brushes have specific shapes, but you can see that I'm using and combining them specifically to duplicate the effect that I want. The shrubbery that I want to create here isn't just me stippling it in; it's me layering the stipples in a particular pattern, as well as using an erasing tool to destroy some of that pattern underneath it, so that I create negative image space. But that feels a little too compliant, a little too uniform. So let's cause a little tuft here, a little tuft here, and we'll do a tuft here, just to break up the silhouette a little bit, make it a little bit more interesting. And I'm just gonna fill in a little bit here, just random taps. Good. I think what I want to do is free transform. I feel like I want to distort and then drop to create this to create a bend. This curve that we're creating here, like having more space opened up here compared to like here and here. That's disrupting. Like when we first started, I was concerned about how level it was, right? Here's the original hedge that I had created, but it's such a uniform height that I can't tolerate that. It's flattening the piece. So by removing that and using this instead, I'm now creating the mountains are coming down like this, and the shrubbery is slowly coming down like this. And then we have the middle ground with the fields basically occupying space here. When we add in the tulips, we'll have those basically push up like this. So we're creating little topsy-turvy sort of things. But now that we've layered in the shrubbery, I'm going to destroy that one. Let's duplicate, group, so that we hate what we end up doing. We aren't stuck with it. I'm gonna hit save real quick just to prevent any regrets. I'm gonna take a sip of water and chase it with some coffee to help wake up. 2 sips of water for every sup of coffee keeps you from being dehydrated and helps keep the kidney stones away. So tell your mother. Let's grab the initial brush that we used to add in the bulk of the brush. We're going to take the eraser, we're going to drop it down to 20%, and then we're just going to tap at the top of the bush. The brush that I'm using here, it's the Foliage texture brush. Again, it's in the ASB file packet that's on my Patreon. All you gotta do is follow me. You don't even have to give me any money, and you can have the brush set. It's my thank you to the community. We're at 585 subscribers this week, so bless you guys for taking an interest in the stuff that we're doing here. By using that eraser with a 20% eraser tool, a little bit of the underlying color that we have in the background starts to poke through a little bit. I'm going to go back to the same brush we're using here that we used to do the tips. We're now going to use that same brush to further erase. I'm going to push that up to, let's go to 60% and see how that feels. It's too small. I need a larger, like that. Thank you, Timely Timer. No, hold on. Is this the way that we want to do it? Maybe. I don't hate this. Oops, I'm using add instead of erase. Let's do that again. Now you can see we're replicating pattern on top of pattern to break things up. Now we have all this weirdness going on down in here. So let's create a new layer and let's paint over that. This is the wrong brush to use. Let's go back to our general foliage texture. Let that fill in. Again, this lower extremity part here. Since this is a separate layer from what we had just created, I'll be able to go through that same disintegration effect to create more layers for us. We can build layers inside of layers. So the shrubbery itself, the shrubbery silhouette is a layer. But now we're going through the process of adding actual volume and depth to the shrubbery layers themselves. Tap that in, and hey, what's going on? Can you recommend any kind of tutorial or video to help me learn how to paint? Oh boy, oh boy. No, or yes. The entire internet. There are so many channels on the internet that teach basic drawing techniques. Like you have to learn how to like consistently put pixels where you want them to be, or move a paintbrush, like technique of actually utilizing the tools to draw a circle, draw a straight line, draw triangles, like super basic shapes, just to make sure that you're using the tool correctly. And then you go into forms like spheres and cubes and cylinders and pyramids, learning how the laws of light work and how form sits, like the illusion of three-dimensional objects forms sitting on the two-dimensional shape of your canvas to create that illusion. And then that takes you into perspective, which is like those like city scenes, right? Like in comic books and stuff of lots of buildings, which are essentially just very fancy rectangles, going to vanishing points to establish consistency of angles and projecting your lines so that looks properly. So that's perspective. And then there's organic shapes, taking from those simple perspective blocks and carving off the edges. So like an apple is different from a sphere because it's a misshapen shape. Well, an orange is basically a sphere, right? So the difference between an apple and orange is like color and taste and the genus and all that shit. It's the shapes are different. So you want to start working on your shapes. Then from there you can start working on color and lighting. So now that you have shapes and now you have your forms and you have your perspective good, you can start working on coloring and how lighting changes the colors that you're working with. And then those are the basic components that you need. And then from there you can start working on compositions, which is where you see these still life paintings like fruit in a basket on a table with a tablecloth. Reproduce that. That's training your eye to paint what you see, and then on top of it to continue developing all those different techniques. So and once you get to a point where you can do a decent job with duplicating still life, then you can start looking at like a person or an animal or a car or a villa or a coastline. You can start duplicating the looks there and then start developing your techniques and your tools for shorthanding and developing a style for yourself. So like those are like the 7 steps from going I don't know how to paint to I can get paid to work. So yep. So that's the start. It's you work through that process. You can grab any random Bob Ross painting off of YouTube or when they do a marathon on the weekend, and then use the tool set that I have on my Patreon to try to play along, figuring out which brushes you think work best. I get demonetized if I stream me watching Bob Ross and then duplicating his painting. I might be able to get away with I might be able to get away with that being a transformative use of the content, because I'll literally be painting what he is doing. I'll color sample off of his canvas. I'm concerned about doing that, but it's something I can do. I'll look into that to see if that's something I can do, because that might be fun for people as as a streaming event. It could be kind of cool to do that. But let's see. I'm always a little concerned about lawyer stuff. So we're going to add in a little cascade here. We're going to add a little tumbler in here. But technically, you could learn how to paint like Bob does by using the brushes I gave you on a digital canvas, or you could, invest in the vellum and the paint sets and the brushes. It's about a $300 investment to get what Bob has set up for like maybe 6 paintings, and then you'll have to start buying more canvas. The liquid white will last you a while, and the actual tubes of paint will last you a while. But it's the canvases that are really going to murder you on the price. The Bob Ross company was not interested in working with me when I said, hey, I developed some digital tools that reproduce this effect so you can paint in Photoshop. They're like, yeah, we sell paint for fuck off. So that's fair. It's very, very fair. It's doing stuff like this is a direct disruption of their industry, of what they're trying to do, which is make money by selling paint. I cannot blame them for doing capitalism. God bless them. I don't know. Maybe I can get to a point. I run playtest games on Saturday mornings here in Seattle at 9 a.m. and I use my morning time like from 6 till 9. I do that for prep, either like filling in maps or pulling up and creating monsters or whatever the hell it is I got going on. But for a while there, I was doing a Saturday morning stream. Maybe I can get back to it. Maybe after I finish this Eberron adventure, I can recalibrate how I spend my day, how I schedule my week, and organize it a little bit differently, and potentially perhaps have a Saturday morning paint along. If I can confirm the transformative nature of me doing a paint along with Bob while I'm streaming his painting and his episodes. If I can establish that plausibility, then maybe I'll do a Saturday morning Bob Ross stream, and we'll just start with episode 1, season 1, and maybe over the course of the next 6 years go through all the episodes. Who knows? Who knows? That's something I could do. That's something psychotic I could do. That'd be fun. So maybe that's something. Maybe that's something we'll do. Maybe I'll have a private stream and I can do that for Patreon members. Who knows? See, I'm still using this just the same technique of erasing in a fan to break up that shape, and then we have enough density and texture here that it just starts to look good. I feel like you've frozen up. There we go. Yeah, it did. It did freeze up for a second. OBS wants to update, and when OBS wants to update, I can typically expect some hankiness coming out of Adobe. OBS and Adobe are not necessarily friends. There we go. But I like how this looks. It's looking pretty good. This is just the initial layer. So now that we've got like the basic form and volume of this thing looking pretty good, we can come back through and we can do some highlights. I should probably put this stuff in front of the trees. Just good foreground shrubbery immediately makes the mid-ground look better because the change in texture is dramatic. Oh hell yeah, dude! I mean, it's not really good advice. It's a step. It really is. That is your first step. It really is. I had the advantage of starting when I was 5. And there's some logic to this. When I was a little kid, I drew tanks and airplanes on a piece of paper in a war, and I'd draw all these tanks along the ground, and I'd have all these planes in the air and soldiers and stuff, and I would shoot, and I'd shoot bullets and shells and stuff at each other. So I would draw these dotted lines that would go from one tank and arc and hit the other tank, or like shoot a missile out of a plane towards a tank on the ground. So at 5 years old, I was learning how to draw straight lines. I like how to do dash lines and keep them lined up. And I actually cared about that effect. So at a very early age, I was concerned about how does this look, and that was important to me. And it just continued to develop from there. By the time I was 12, 13, getting into D&D and Robotech and big robots and Mech Warrior, I was looking at how can I create these mecha, not these shitty little two-dimensional tanks. How can I actually create Robotech Veritechs and Destroids and Battletech machines, and then I got into like how can I make the transfer from mecha into like full plate armor. That was the other side that I was working. It's like the natural curvature and organicness of full plate armor from knights, for instance. I was getting into knights at that point. So there was I immediately picked up on there's a parallel between. I can collapse all these layers. They're all good. We can merge. Good. Now let's create a new layer. I have to go. I have to go color fishing. So let's see if we have appropriate shrubbery already in the piece. I want to stay away from purples and reds because I don't want to steal from the tulips that we make. So let's go into our painting here, into our reference image. There's a glitch happening here. There it is. Something like that is a more radical green than the yellowishness that we have in the field. So that should be a good contrast. And no, okay, cool. Collect ourselves for a second. Grab the same brush that we did the tips with. You want to use the same brush when we're doing highlights as we do our base shadow, so that the shadow actually is a shadow of the highlights. The brighter color, this green that we're about to use, is the highlight on top of this very dark green. See, this is very dark green, 16, 22, 11. It's barely green. This one is the same. See, this one is low, this one is high, green is the highest. So it's BRG in pixel, in saturation, or value. Yeah, in value. And then if we use the highlight color, we're now looking at BRG as well, 21, 48, 72. So it's the same array, but it's just warping as the green pulls further forward faster at a faster rate than the blue and the red does. It generates saturation. The more difference between your lowest color and your highest color, that's what defines saturation. And saturation is basically like sharpness of color. The further away you get, the duller and more gray something becomes. The color washes out because the atmosphere is full of grit, and the actual molecules of nitrogen and oxygen and whatever in the air actually deflects light in different directions. And over miles, it's such a thick density of atoms that it eventually just grays stuff out. It destroys saturation the further you move away because you don't have as clear an image. That's why, like, when somebody's like walking through tear gas or fog in the morning, they gray out a lot because all of the particulates in the air, like the tear gas or water vapor, is magnifying that dispersion more quickly, so everything grays out more. So that's atmospheric disturbance. So atmosphere equals less saturated colors. The closer you get, the more saturated they become. So that's just basic laws of light. So, but you have to know all that shit when you're painting, because you got to be able to actually implement it, put a practical, give it a practical application is what I'm looking for. And I'm not liking this brush. It's too dense, so we're going to switch back to an oldie but faithful goodie. Let's get into the foliage scatter burst brush. This is what this brush looks like. It's just a pockmark, right? And but if I bend them together, they make neat little spherical effects. So this brush is specifically, you can see here, it's basically a right angle with a curve going from the top to bottom with a little bit of kick outside of its edge. That is a pattern that makes it really, really easy to dust in highlights like this, because the shape of the shrub, I can turn the brush to match the angle of the shrubbery, and it's such a loose scattered pattern that it just comes through as highlights. So I'll dust on the tips like this, and then we'll erase some of it. Again, having the brush in a brush set isn't good enough. You have to know how to actually use the brush. Like, why would I use these brushes? It's because you can combine and use them to create these patterns that end up looking pretty good. Like that looks pretty stupid. But if we then come through with this same brush that we used to, so this is the brush. Here, right. This is the brush that we used to add in these curves, right? So now we're going to use that same brush to erase what we just added. And I want to use, I think I want to use more than 40%. Let's go to 60%. That should be 60% erase. There we go. So I can break up the pattern that way. So I'm using the same brush, the same fanning technique that we used initially to add the shadow background. We're now using that same brush to erase the highlights in the same pattern. And it ends up not overwhelming it or getting rid of that helmet look. Now it's just picking up. Now it's just picking up highlights. And again, your eye wants this to work. Your eye wants to find something it can just write off as that's consistent. That's a pattern. I acknowledge you. Your eye wants to put in as little effort as it can to make this stuff work. So we're hijacking its own laziness. And it's all just stippling. It's just like Japanese ink block paintings. They have all these wooden blocks that have shapes carved into them that when they press it into the ink pool and then they press it on the paper, it leaves that mark. This is the exact same process as that, except it's just digital. That's all it is. It's just Japanese block, ink block painting. And all they do is stipple and smudge. It's all the same tools. It's just this is just Japanese ink block painting at a very high sophisticated level. Doesn't mean it's better, because there's some fucking amazing block art I get to see, especially around here in Seattle when you go to craft fairs. There's always some little bodega setup that's got just amazing block prints in them. I never buy them, but I steal pictures of them. I'll take a picture of them with my camera because I'm a bastard. I should support my local artists, but we're all starving here, so leave me alone. That's looking pretty good. Let's add in another layer real quick, just to get rid of the dark blocks at the bottom here. Not bad. Not bad. Pretty happy with that. Where's our text? Something like this. for your full screen look. It's gonna be something like that. See, now all we have to do is, if we just drop in some tulips in here, there's a little bit of band here that we can put a little shock of color in that doesn't overwhelm the piece, but will add some, add just another dimension. Pay close attention. Can actually drop that down a little bit. Trees. I'm eyeing this gap over here. I don't like it. Yeah, get some. All we gotta do is, if we can just drop in some color into this zone here, I think that's going to, like a shock of color, will help make that pop. Not that I can tell. I'm just theorizing that perhaps it'll end up looking good. So far, so good. So what? Okay, but before we get into because the tulips will be the last thing we do. So before we go there, let's add in highlights into these trees over here, so that they can match the same quality level that we have over here. Let me drop this away, disable the layer mask, and we can drop the text for now. Yeah, this is gonna end up being an okay piece. So far so good. We're still in the so far so good so what stage, but it's coming along. Okay, cool. So now that we're in the trees, let's get into the trees. We'll do the back tree first, and then we'll do the front tree next. So let's go back into our references to see if we can find some decent highlight color for this sort of trees. We should have something. Is that a red? Photoshop apparently has a problem with me using color picking tools at that level. See, this feels like a red to me. That's interesting. Like, when I look at it, I assumed it was red. Alas, no. That is green. It's a similar green to the bushes that we were looking at, but it has less of a difference. The blue is higher on these trees than the shrubbery we were just dealing with. So that's enough of a variant that'll probably end up looking okay. So let's fuck around and find out, shan't we? So we'll hide the frame. And I don't want to use the shrubbery brush. I want to go back to our conifer tip brush. This is very Bob Ross in style. I'm just tapping, just basically ladder stepping our way down as we go. And then we hit the large mass of the tree in front of it. So I'm going to conceal the tree in front of it. So we continue just working our way down into the canvas like this. And then we're going to take this conifer branch. Technically this one's called conifer tips. But we're going to reduce its fluff, make it a little bit flatter and a little bit smaller. Uh-oh. Did I paint directly on there? God damn it, Kearney. And it's supposed to be on a separate layer, and I can't erase when the color underneath it gets destroyed. That's not going to do us any good. So let's undo all that. Jeez. There. Blip, blip. Let's disable that. New layer. Thank you. Start with a smaller brush at the top, and as we work our way down the tree, we naturally increase the size of the brush to reflect the increasing mass of the branches. There. And then we come back through here with the eraser. I'm keeping the eraser vertical, in a horizontal orientation for the most part at the depth when we're facing directly on towards the camera. We're keeping it flat. As we skew around the curve of the tree, we bend down. So you can see the curvature of the branches better, like that. So that ends up looking like this. We're tap, 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 and just this gentle arc that goes back and forth. And again, we want to increase the size of the brush to reflect the increased size of the branches that we're working with. And we don't have to be specific about it. We're just running. We're just going through, literally going through the motions, so that the motion carries the composition. See, not bad. It's not heavy. It's not a strong difference between the shadow and the highlights, but we don't want a lot of difference between the shadow and the highlights, because if we go back into the reference painting here, there is not a lot of difference between the highlights and the shadow. So this is accurate. I'll add in the next one. Tuesday, Monday night, Tuesday lunch, we started working on Ravnica and Strixhaven backgrounds for D&D 2024. I am very happy with how that's structured, so we're going to be spending time on that tonight. It's Thursday, so I'll be back on in less than 11 hours. We'll be back on working on D&D 5e24 stuff. So we design a concept, we play test it. If it works, we build a book out of it. I then do the page layouts and illustrations for the book, and then we publish it. And since I'm doing 5e content, I publish it on the DMsGuild because I am a Magic the Gathering junkie. I like doing Magic the Gathering things. So I have the right to use Magic the Gathering IP on the DMsGuild, and I want to abuse that until they take it away from me. There, see, we're just using that same arcing effect that we use on the other tree, and it just creates all these really just interesting little layers. Super simple technique. Very easy to accomplish. Very, very easy techniques. Super simple. Ooh, I like that. Hold on. What happens if I press this button? here. Maybe not. No, I think I'm okay with that. Just gonna let that sit like that. Cool. All right, so now we have our shrubbery line here. Pretty happy with how that looks. How are we doing on time? 7:23. So I've got another 20-ish minutes or so. So far, we're hitting all our marks. I feel like I'm gonna go off script real quick. Grab ye old round brush. I feel like something over here. I feel like something over here would make a lot of sense. Ah, alas, earwax. It'd be completely off screen. So let's take that into consideration. Do I want to have a flanking tree over here as well? I don't know. Science point to maybe? I like how extended that is. I might reduce the size of the painting to have just more of this area occupied. The space that's available. Let's do this. I've got that 7:30 alarm going. I forgot why I did that. I need to turn that off. Like delete it. Let's create this little crook here. Yeah, let's see what happens if I do this. See if I like it or not. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. It's a separate layer. I can get rid of it if I want. Nothing wrong with testing it out just to see how it sits. But Muse really wants me to put something over in this corner. And she really has a good eye. So I like to trust her. I like to trust her. disintegrate this a little bit. Destroy that a bit. Well, thank you, Timely Timer. I just got the 7:30 alarm, so I was aware of your presence, but I appreciate you chiming in early. A bit of sculpting, just make it look pretty. Make it pretty the way that I want it to be pretty. Everybody's pretty, but are you the kind of pretty that I like? That's open to interpretation. That's called discernment. You're a fluffy butted tree, ain't you? I want to rein that in a little bit. See, I was talking about tangents earlier, about brush strokes meeting the curve of something. Like this hill is curving, right? So I want to be mindful of, am I lining up any branches that are directly aligning with the curve of this break of the grass line and the tree line behind on that hill. Or knoll. Who knows what it'd be? Crest? Not sure what the proper noun there is, but also have to be careful not think about it too much. If I start thinking and being too discerning, I kill the creative naturalness of the shape. So I can't whinge on it too much, otherwise it starts looking manufactured. Delicate balance there, this random nature shit. Let's carve that away. Let's just add in some flump over here. Just build out some shrubbery effects sort of stuff in here, just to fill it out a little bit, just to see how it sits. I don't hate it. The first step of liking something is to not hate it. Let's grab this brush here. I just feel compelled to add in some more fluffage over here. Completely doesn't even matter, but we know it's there. If I were to say, come in here, drop the size of the painting. I could do something like that. okay, well, let's plan on that. So we're just going to go ahead and build up the composition like we have it. Disable layer mask. Disable text. What is that natural breaking point for this composition? Something like that. I'm going to copy this real quick. It's not a bad composition. I don't really have anything to complain about here. If anything, I just want to shorten the shrubbery on the bottom. So far, it's not bad. So if we drop in some, if we can drop in some color inside here with the tulips, that will probably make this look pretty fucking good. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with this. It's not the most amazing piece in the world. I know that it's not the best, but it's certainly reasonable. So it's a decent piece. So I can be happy with that. But it's certainly. Wait, I mean a 20%. 20% eraser here. There is some sort of tension trying to work its way out of my back. It's welcome it is welcome to exit if it so chooses, but it sure ain't comfortable. Let's see. Like that. It feels pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that. So let's overlay that. Some of this. Through here like we were talking, just hit the eraser here. That should be more like 60%. We're just doing the arc, just back and forth like that. Let's break it down. Looks pretty good. Let's flatten that out a little bit more. And just let it blend in a little bit. Tuftage like that. Tuft. Yeah, a lot of art is just about composition and layout. Like, how are you assembling the pieces so they look aesthetically pleasing, arranged with each other? It's arranging, you know, like flower arrangement. It's an art. Hey, not so bad. I feel like I can afford a brighter shock of highlights on these bushes, so I'm going to risk that. Let's do that in there. Trees. Left tree. Shrubbery. So far, so good. Take this whole block. I want to break. Okay, so I've got this pattern here where you've got like this line, like this shape here, and this shape here are highlights, and there's this gap in between which is shadow. That equals, like that bent equal sign is what's the word I'm looking for? It's too visible. It has too much visibility here. So when we are filling in the rest of the tulips, or however it is that we do this, we definitely want to break this this horizon line here, this quote unquote horizon that goes across here, so we can break up that little art, that replicating pattern, that artifact of our cornstalk brush. So this is the area that we want to have tulips, even though they're going to largely be covered by the foreground shrubbery. So that's why I'm pushing down the shrubbery. I can do like that. What happens if I press this button? That's the nice thing about having all these things on different layers. I can scooch them if I want to. That's starting to feel like a decent little pattern. Let's lift that one. Let's lift this one up a bit so that it lift it and bring it in a smidge. No, about like that's good. What about the sky? Yep, that feels pretty good. I like that. Okay, great. So the only thing that we really have to do is the tulips, but I'm procrastinating because I'm intimidated. So what do we do when we're intimidated? We add more detail somewhere else. So I'm gonna run away from that, and I was already saying I think I want to have more highlights along the top of these bushes here. So we're gonna run away from the tulip problem. And let's grab a stronger highlight. Same color, same effect. I just want to dust in. I just want to put a little bit of scatter on the right hand side of these crests. Just want to add in a little bit more punch. So we're going to take the same brush that we've been using. All right, well, that didn't take long. I can't hide forever, huh? So I guess we're gonna have to start working on tulips. So that's for the best. We can probably get the tulip shape defined today, and then start looking at how we can utilize it. I've never done a field of flowers like this before, so this is new ground for us to explore. We're discovering things together today. Hold on real quick. That feels really good. Can you tell I'm hiding from the tulips? Because I'm whinging on these little insignificant details that are potentially just going to ruin the piece. But whinge I shall. I'm going to hit the save button real quick just to make sure we don't fuck anything up for reals. Almost there. Okay, that feels pretty good. I think I can stop whinging on that now. Thank you. Foreground grass. Let's go front shrubbery. Tulip patch. Okay, so here here is these are roses. So that's a thanks. super green stalks, and then ultra red tips. Look at that saturation. It's insane. That is too sharp of a saturation for this image. Uh-oh. Thank you, Timely Timer. That's telling me I'm actually just about out of time. But look at that. Look at that atmospheric disturbance coming off of here. This looks so good. What a great example of desaturated, like look at that desaturated. Like there's so much blue that's coming in from the sky over here. See, look how low that RGB is. Like all that's within 20 pixels of each other. It's super tight. And then we have this radical saturation here where there's a difference of 220 just ripping off the page. I don't think that's appropriate for this piece. I grabbed that sample because I wasn't sure, you know, if I'd like it or not, and I absolutely don't. So get the hell out of here. That is the wrong piece for this composition. However, there we go. We do have these, which are also pretty sharp in contrast, or in saturation, but it's not. I don't think it's too contrasted for the piece. Here and here. Let's grab this. I'm gonna grab these and bring them over here where they don't get in the way of the screen. Let's just grab that. It's a decent mid-tone. These darker bits down here. Same again. It's shadows, so it's the same saturation, just darker. A little less saturation as it darkens. But for now, we're just gonna take this. We're just gonna grab a random shape and dab it on. This is not the correct shape to use. This is a corn. This is our corn cob tip. I ended up dotting a lot of this stuff into this area. Like this is I'm just doing color mass right now, just to see if I like how it sits on the page. And you know, I think I like it. Almost the same. That is a range of 100. That's a range of 140. This is a range of 150. So this is almost the same level of saturation. So the blue sky has about the same level of saturation as this tulip purple that I'm exploring. I think that I like that. My gut's telling me that's a good color to use. I don't need to use it. I don't need to overuse it. I just want to have a little shock of color in here. So what we need to do is create a flower bud tip, and then have the green stalks going down out of it. But we are out of time for now, so this is where we're going to end for now. I am really liking this composition. But if someone can let me know I'll be back tomorrow morning. Tomorrow is July 4th, so it's a holiday in America. So I won't have my lunch shift like normal tomorrow, but I will be back tomorrow morning to do more artwork with this. And with God's grace, we might actually finish this thing tomorrow. So I can if I can get started at 6 o'clock, and I can stretch into overtime if I need to. But I'm hoping that little patch I can resolve in a 2-hour block, and we'll be able to finish this thing off so that when we come back on Monday, we'll start on a completely new page, a completely new paint, and I have no idea what it's going to be yet. But this is where we're at right now, so I'm really happy with it. Yeah, the more I'm looking at this, the more I like that. The more I like that beat. Oh god, this is gonna be really fucking cool. This is gonna be really, really fucking cool. God, yeah. Okay, I'm hitting save for now. I'm going to be back this evening to work on Ravnica and Strixhaven backgrounds and Renown college credits. I don't think we're going to get into Theros Piety today, but it'll follow the same structure as the Ravnica Renown and the Strixhaven credits do, so that'll be easy to replicate. That's it for now, guys. I'm out for now. I'll be back in approximately 10 hours to do that game design this evening for a 2 or 3 hour block of time. I'll be back tomorrow morning, same time, to work on the tulip patch to finish up the piece. This is great. All right, thanks a lot for being here, guys. I will see y'all on the other side.